My mom, she was an elite masters runner, and she like always sort of emphasizes like if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it, as you age and everything. And obviously the times get slower as you age, and you kind of expect that, and you can delay that process though by 5 to 10 years if you're consistent with it. Like when I'm retired from professional running, I'm gonna keep running every single day, every morning, at least 3 or 4 times a week, and like not lose that. If I want to do more, I can do more, but really it's like if I'm not getting out for 5 or 6 miles 3 or 4 times a week, it's hard to get that back.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Run DNA Podcast. Excited to have Drew Hunter back on. Drew and I just spent about 20 minutes on our new dad podcast talking about how to raise kids and things like that, because Drew just welcomed his second child in, so congratulations, Drew.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we didn't record that part. We were giving all the secrets away of how to be the best dads ever, which
exactly
we're still learning. So
watch out for our new podcast of Drew and I talking about being dads there. But no, exciting. I mean, it's been a little bit since we've caught up with you here on the podcast, and it's been a really exciting couple months for you. Obviously, bringing Rosie in the world is one thing, but you've had a really good running career kind of these past couple months, and I'd love to just dive into it and hear some of your thoughts and reflections on that and what contributed. So if you weren't familiar with all the fun track and field events going on, with it being Olympic year and trials, Drew kind of stepped into the 10K world, and with a big presence there and a really great debut culminating in you were 4th place, right, at the trials there. So Drew, tell us about that and what it was like, going from the 15 and the 5 to the 10, and what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, it was a great year. I, missed out on potentially, or what a lot of people think is like the A+ goal, which was to, make the Olympics and be competitive there and represent the US. But I had a pretty rough year the year before, and I just didn't feel like myself. And I felt that this was kind of my last shot. I mean, Doug, I kind of remember meeting you, and I was like, this is my contract year. Like, if I don't run well, like a company's not going to want to work with me. And, I need to figure out what life looks like beyond just running professionally. And so I kind of took all that pressure away, and I just said, I started to kind of reframe things a lot with, sort of my training and just my life. And I went really, really simple and really sort of the opposite. I think a lot of people in Olympic year, become obsessed and become a little bit almost have an unhealthy relationship with their running. They're like, I can't go out and have a beer with a friend, or I can't, stay up late any nights or anything like that. And first off, I became a dad for the first time. And so I think my focus kind of went away from just running. It was, I have a baby to take care of, and I have a wife that I'm providing for. And, all those sort of things sort of became a lot more of my focal point. And I just let running be in its place of okay, this is my career and it's something I love and I'm passionate about. And I'm just going to enjoy the process of being a professional runner for one more year. And that was pretty much all how I sort of tackled this year. And things started to click. And, the end of the fall and early winter, I ran cross country, and that was really fun. That was different. That's something I haven't done in years. And it was just I was doing things that I was excited about. And then I kind of just was I'm going to sign up for a 10K. I've never run a 10K before. I knew my weaknesses was my strength. I just felt like I lost sort of a lot of the, the strength that I used to have, in high school and early on in my pro career. I could outrun everybody. I just was so much stronger than everyone. And now I had guys outrunning me at the professional level. And I was like, I have to get back on an even playing field with them strength wise. And so we did a ton of threshold training, sort of a ton of longer intervals, just stuff that were, a little bit different than I'd done in the past. Like you were said, I trained as a 1500 runner for a while, and that's a lot more, power and shorter intervals and things like that. So I sort of lost a little bit of, my swagger at the longer races. And so we signed up for the Sound Running 10K in March, and I wanted to be in the B heat. I didn't even want to be in the A heat. I just was I just want a good experience. That's it. Like I could run 28:55, and if I felt like I could walk away from that happy and excited about the year for me, that was all that mattered. And I ended up running so much faster and better than I thought. I ran 27:38. I won the race, and I felt good doing it, which is more important than any of those other things. Like I felt confident. I felt like it was a great distance for me. And, I felt like I had a lot of momentum that I could build on from there. So, yeah, I kind of just reframed everything in my head about, maybe I could be a good 10K runner and maybe I could try another 5K. I sort of went into the year being like, let's see what works. And, that worked. And I ended up finishing the year, like you said, fourth place at the Olympic trials in the 10K. And I was right with Nico Young with, 80 meters to go, who ran sub
Yeah.
27 at the Olympics. And I ran a 1500 PR. I ran 333 later in the year. I ran 1308 in the 5K. Like I PR'd in everything, taking this sort of approach of being just super, super strong. And things started to fall in place. I did a lot of stuff sort of behind the scenes mentally. I came up with a very sort of like intentional morning routine before I'd head out to training. And it was just like, I'd just go down to my basement, walk backwards on my treadmill, and sort of sort through some of the stuff in my head that I was struggling with, just like doubts and confidence and a lot of that stuff. And everyone definitely has like a different approach to how they can, mentally take on the challenges that running is. And for me, I just wanted to face them head on. And, so if I had a barrier in my head, I'd just be like, why do you have this? Let's work through this. How do we get out of this? And slowly but surely you sort of build on that momentum. You kind of break down one barrier, and you sort of have like, you're almost enlightened, and you realize, oh, I can, let that go and move on to the next challenge. And I just like had a really good year, and I felt like I sort of got my running back on track. And yeah, it was really special. And it was just, I don't know, I think it was there's still so much more I want to do, but for me it was the year I needed. Like I needed just a really solid, I felt like I'm back on base for a baseball reference. I'm batting, above average again. And I feel like I can really build on that momentum into the next few years. So I'm currently working through another contract. I hope that, I can be running for 4 more years, and that's the plan. So I'm really sort of excited for the future.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, it's some of those barriers that you're talking about coming and overcoming there are just impressive. So, just I would be curious because I mean, you're obviously at the highest level of the sport, but there's a lot of people even doing it recreationally that this isn't their livelihood and things like that, but still have some of that pressure. And I don't think you can underestimate the impact that some of those mental barriers have on performance as well. So, you said you developed a morning routine, you started learning how to handle things, you let the pressure go. So I would just want to follow up with like, how? How did you figure out how to do that stuff? Did you work with, sports psychologists? Did you read? Did you just, have to find your place? Was it becoming a dad and getting that dad mental strength there? Like, what was it for you that really helped you to just say like, enough's enough? Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to be me. I'm going to do what I do, and I got to figure this out.
Yeah, it's a little of everything. I wish there was sort of like one bullet point answer of
Yeah.
like, you know, I
Read this book.
I read, yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I take an ice bath every morning, and it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I think like it was just being consistent with addressing it. If I were to literally pinpoint it to one thing, I use a meditation app called Hallow. It's a Catholic meditation app. And it's sort of like, for me, like it was going through, like I basically go through, the daily scripture every day. And then it sort of leaves a ton of time for silence. And, most other people who are using this app are not thinking about their sport or running or anything, but I use that silence to sort of like talk to God and to talk, through a lot of the issues that I was having. And that worked for me. That may not work for everyone else.
Yeah.
But I really think, that sort of got me on track more than anything to sort of like bring to light a lot of the issues that I was dealing with. I just like last few years, like been my own worst enemy in terms of like self-talk. Like I sort of like can be self-deprecating. Like if I'm not running well, like I'll make fun of myself, but like there's a lot of truth to sort of those claims. And And I just stopped believing that I could be even a halfway decent runner. Like I was just like, oh, like I'm just not very good at this anymore. Like I don't feel good. Like and that stuff snowballs into just you show up to the starting line, you look left and right, and you're like, what am I doing? I don't feel
Yeah.
confident. I can't beat any of these guys. Why am I even doing this? And so I sort of had to unravel all that, and then switch back into sort of like more of like a confident mind to really focus on like, okay, like I do belong here. I've prepared as best as I can. My training's been excellent. I have an amazing family back home that if I fail, it doesn't, they still love me. That's all you need. Just go out and run your heart out. And that's what I did. And, you know, uh, it's simple, but in theory, it took for me, like when you say it out loud, it's like, that's really simple. But
Right.
for me, it took sort of months of almost like unwinding bad habits and finding out like what my why was and kind of restructuring things in my head and but yeah, it felt great to race again too. I think like that was something too is like you show up to races sort of anxious and not looking almost like it's almost like a punishment. It's like you did such great training and then you show up to the race and you're like, like this is gonna hurt. I'm afraid, the expectations are a lot higher, obviously, in training. If something goes wrong, no one really cares. And so for me, I was, very sort of like intentional to reframe things that like I love racing, like competing's the best and it's an opportunity. And how many people would love to be at the Olympic trials for a shot to make an Olympic team? Like just a lot more gratitude in sort of the statements I was having with, the conversations I was having with myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like if there's one thing, it's just like prioritizing it
Hmm.
is one thing, right?
Yeah.
Of there's maybe not one way for everyone's going to have to find their own path of how to overcome some of these mental barriers, but
Yeah.
making it a priority and making it equally as important as what's the training program
Hmm.
or what's the nutrition plan. Those things have to have enough priority and enough weight that you
Yep.
really say, "Hey, I'm gonna address this, and if I
Hmm.
don't, I'm just gonna, lather, rinse, repeat, and I'm gonna get the same results that I've been getting for the past year, so I need to do something different with it."
Totally. Yeah. No, it was, and I think, uh, like you said, like I have multiple other teammates that had great years, and they took a completely different route and path to
Yeah.
that than me. But all of us on the starting line this year, the sort of the themes where we believed in ourselves, we loved what we were doing, and we enjoyed the process to get there, and all those things sort of, snowballed into success in running, even though the path may look differently for each person.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole thing too. Even I've been focusing a lot too on, like, enjoying the path to get to
Hmm.
places there because, the summit of where you're getting to, you spend very little time there. All of the
Hmm.
time is spent along
Yeah.
the way. So,
Yeah.
if you're not enjoying the path to get there, you're not gonna enjoy the summit either.
Totally. Yeah.
It's not all of a sudden just gonna click, be like, "Oh, that was totally worth it." It's like,
Yeah.
no, you gotta find ways that you enjoy every aspect of it there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, I love showing to practice. Like I joke with my parents all the time because they coach our team, but I
Yeah,
constantly annoyingly remind them there was not a person who was at more practices last year than me. And I know that sounds funny on a pro team, but people like take time away and like they are sick or there's a lot of things. I had so little setbacks with I just showed up and showing up was what I needed. Showing up and being there for my teammates and having people to run with, like that was huge. And so and that's sort of like how I'm going to approach this year is like I just am going to show up to practice often and with a smile on my face. And I think like that's just going to sort of let the results sort of take care of themselves.
yeah, it's kinda I think I've even mentioned this quote before, but James Clear, Atomic Habits, like, never miss twice.
Exactly.
Really
Yeah.
wanna achieve something,
Yeah.
consistency is important. Don't get down on yourself if you miss once in a while, but just
Yeah.
don't let it happen twice.
Yep.
You
No,
know, make
totally.
sure you're not 2 days in a row missing. It's like 1 day, okay, you're missing 5 days, no, and you gotta play the long game with that.
Yep.
I always like that. So
Yeah.
now, I love that we started off with the mental aspect of the sport and things like that too, but you did say that, a lot of your teammates had a really good year as well, and that you switched up the training a little bit. So since you and I love to talk nerdy about running as well here, like what do you think, was helpful? Tell us a little bit about maybe some of like the double threshold focus and some of that stuff, and love to hear your thoughts on the training itself too.
Yeah, I maybe to back up a little bit, I
Yeah.
sort of read some books in that kind of helped, that they were not even running books.
Mm.
They sort of helped sort of like my psychology and sort of the conversations I'd have with my mom this year
Yeah.
about um, how we wanted to structure my training. I read a really good book. It's called Poor Charlie's Almanac. It's Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's sort of like right hand man at
Yeah.
Berkshire Hathaway, which is has nothing to do with running. Warren Buffett's like the fifth richest man in the world and created a massive business and has more money than anybody. But one of his sort of like keys to success was hiring Charlie Munger, and Charlie Munger's one of his huge sort of like psychology tricks before making any big decision
Mm.
was inverting the problem and basically saying, what are the things I could do to screw up this decision? And I
Yeah.
started looking at my running that way, where I looked back at all the training I'd done, the years I had injuries, the years I had sort of like was sick a lot, the years that I had sort of a lot of mental issues. And I said, what were the big mistakes I made? What if we just decide to try to like ignore those this year and not make those mistakes? And
Mm.
then there's a really good chance that we'll have a successful year. And so when I met with my parents in the fall, I just told them, I said, I can't do hard, flashy workouts this year. I just have to just have the same training every single week and just do that for 6 months. And I think that's my ticket. And they were kind of like, okay, like, like I understand where you're coming from. This
Yeah.
may or may not work, but I like appreciate that you sort of are presenting this to us and saying that this is something that you feel strongly about. And that's what I did. Like that was one of the reasons I was consistent at all events this year. I ran 1:1500 and I ran a PR. Like I didn't the year before. All I was doing was hard track sessions. Really sort of dialing in on that stuff, and I felt bad, and I couldn't recover, and I was kind of just like not in a great place with running. And this past year, like I basically every week we do a Monday semi long run, easy 90 minutes, 13, 14 miles, not hard at all. Easy Tuesday with strides. Wednesday was our double threshold days. So 5x2K in the morning, 10x K in the afternoon. Very easy. I mean, the fastest I'm running on those days is a low 3-minute K.
Yeah.
But it's a big volume day, 22 miles total in the day.
Mm.
Thursday, easy. Friday, easy, double with strides. And then Saturday, hills, another threshold day, or some sort of race specific workout. So, if we had a 5K coming up, we might do 400s at 5K pace
Yeah.
off of short rest, something like that. And Sunday easy and rinse and repeat. And if you look at my Strava, all my training's public. So if you don't believe me, you can go back and check. Kyle Merber gave me some crap at the Olympic trials. He goes, I don't think I've seen a person do more 5x2K or 10x1K than you. Like you know how to run a 10K, man. Like you're ready for that. And it's true. Like I just did the same thing. Me and Joey basically did everything together, and we had probably some of the best running, years of our career and consistency wise. And like I said, so I kind of took a lot of that sort of Charlie Munger philosophy of saying like, this may not work for everybody, but it cuts out a lot of the BS that could
Mhm.
potentially derail us in a big
Yeah.
way. And for me, that worked. I'm not saying it would work for everyone, but that's sort of what we did this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I do something similar on business things, but any goal I
Mhm.
really set, like I call it a premortem,
Yeah,
and I
yeah, that's
say,
good.
like,
Yeah.
what's gonna go wrong?
Hmm.
If I do not achieve this goal, why
Yeah.
would it be,
Yeah.
right? And you start saying, "Why would I not?" And then you
Hmm.
take those barriers away with your strategy, and that's how you
Yeah.
set your strategy to hit the goal. That's exactly what you did. You said, "Hey, I need to be consistent. I don't need flashy. I'm gonna take that away. That's my strategy. Here we go."
Yeah.
And I think that is powerful in sport, in life,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, understanding the things that are going to stop you
Yes. Yeah.
because it's just like in a race, right?
Yeah.
visualization
Hmm.
and going through some of the mental aspect before a race, you say, all right, well, what am I going to do if I get a cramp at this
Yeah.
point? If you never think about that before the race and then it happens in a race, you're going to be
It's
all sorts of,
debilitating. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if you've done it or you've experienced it in a workout or if you've gone mentally through the plan, I think there was a coach. There was this podcast. I forget what it was, but it was about this old sprint coach. What was this? It was an Apple podcast, and they talked about it. And the coach would bring everyone in. It was like Sprint City or something like that. And it would talk about how every night before any race, the coach would go through and he would have everyone sit for the duration of their event. So if you're running an 800, right? A female running that, he'd say, all right, we're going to sit here for 2 minutes and 5 seconds. And we're
Yeah.
going to have you and I'm going to just call out things that happened during, like, oh,
Yeah.
you cramped, or oh, somebody elbowed you, or oh, what
Yeah.
are you going to do? And the people doing it would say, like, they'd actually, like, their heart rate would increase. They would get like nervous doing it. But if you
Yeah.
don't prep ahead of time, you're never going to be prepared for inevitably when things go wrong.
Totally. And that's great. Like I used to sort of with my visualization, I always would kind of say like one of my mantras was like envision what you aspire to experience. So in the past when I was struggling, I'd be, my visualization was awful. It's like I suck, like I'll be out towards the back and people are out kick me and and it's like of course when I show up to the race, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
You've already gone through it in your head.
you've
And then
accepted.
this past year it was like I mean, that 10K that I ran at the trials, like I had gone over that race in my head so many times. And so like mile to go, we start moving. I was like, I've been here before. Like I can
Yeah.
do this. And I just kept saying, yes, like you've been here, like relax your breathing, relax your form, like all those sort of mental cues like I had done. And so it does make a big difference.
Yeah, those were fun races to watch. I watched all your races and just you could see a difference. One of the things you and I used to always write, like your posture and things like
Hmm.
that, and how much of it was physical versus mental. Some of the
Yeah.
posturing there, and just looking
Yeah.
at that because you had a different look, you had a different fluidity to your movement, just because you seem to be that much more confident. And to see, when people started going, that you were right there with them and never there wasn't a look of panic on your
Yeah.
face. It was just like, okay, it's a mile to
Yeah.
go, let's go. And
Yeah.
then you were just in control. It was really fun to
Mhm.
watch.
Yeah.
It was,
Thank you. Yeah. It
yeah,
hurt. It hurt a lot. It was fun. I'm sure it was fun to look back on, but
great.
I don't know if fun was what I was thinking of in the moment.
Yeah, for me sitting on a couch
Yeah.
halfway across the country, fully
Yeah.
across the
Yeah.
country, it was easy for me. My heart rate did get a little up. I got
Hey,
excited, but
thank you.
and it was like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
which is very late for me, but, but it was fun to
Yeah.
watch there. So,
Thanks, Doug.
now, okay, so it's you're kind of ramping back up,
Hmm.
and when this podcast airs and things like that, a lot of people are gonna be ramping down. Like, we've got Chicago Marathon coming up, we've got, Berlin just happened. People are finishing up their fall races. Maybe they're saving some for the Turkey Day 5K or something like that. But most people are winding down. So what does that mean for you when you have a little downtime? What does that look like? How do you do that? And then how are you getting ready to ramp back up?
Yeah, it's funny you asked this. I actually literally just wrote a newsletter for our coaching platform, Hammer and Axe,
Yeah.
about taking a break, what I do,
Yeah.
what I recommend for people I've worked with, everything. So if you want more of a deep dive on this, that'll come out in a few weeks, probably right when this podcast comes out. But yeah, the first thing I tell people is breaks look differently for everybody. Um, the most important thing is psychologically, once your break is up, you should be like excited to get back running again. And like I said, some people that's 3 days off and they're like, I'm ready to start jogging again.
Yep.
Other people, myself, like I took 2 weeks off. I wanted to not wake up and think about running at all throughout the day. Like I just wanted to be with my kids, be with my family, help my wife. Um, that was what I needed. And sort of the other hybrid break that I recommend for people is just to back up. There's the hardcore 2 weeks off, don't do anything. That's one break. The other break is I really want to get back into things quickly, I always recommend like at least 3 days off, and then sort of like, you can start jogging every other day, sort of the third break. And I'm sort of kind of getting back into this. I kind of like am taking it really slow this year, but um, I like to have like a running when you feel like it, running at a different, doing sort of different running. So like if you never get to run on trails, go out and do some trail running. If you just were like you were saying, doing a Chicago where you're doing lots of road running and marathon grueling training, like run for an enjoyable 30 minutes with someone you don't get to run with, or run on a different route. And just do that for 3 or 4 weeks. And believe it or not, like you'll be pleasantly surprised that you didn't lose a ton of fitness, but you're super refreshed mentally. So I'd say those are sort of the three kind of breaks I recommend for people. But I always say, like, if you're not that excited to start running again, that's probably a sign you didn't take a good enough break. Like I was itching to get running again after my 2 weeks. Like I couldn't wait for my first run. I missed movement. I missed my stride. You know how that feels. I missed starting my day with, a run. If you're sort of getting to that point, that's a good sign to sort of get back into some running. And then I just really recommend start slow and steady. I mean, my first week back, I ran 15 miles. I mean, I run 90 miles a week for reference. Like I ran 3 miles, day off, 4 miles, day off, cross training day, another 5 mile run. Like it was very, very gradual. And yeah, that's sort of what I recommend. I think like, you shouldn't be rushing back into things, especially if things are sort of like, achy. And that's my one warning with getting back into running. A lot of people, as I'm sure, as a PT, it's like, uh, you can kind of like have some like injuries kind of, come out of the nowhere after some time off. And I'm sure you could speak to that better than me, but like, even guys on our team, they'll take a break and they'll be like, my knee hurts. And it's like, so you do want to be gentle and careful with your return to run, because us runners become so normalized in our routine of running that not running is actually really, really shocking to our body. We like crave and love load. So yeah, that's what I recommend.
Yeah, I mean, lots of good points there, too. It's like, it's not, you don't have to do as much to maintain fitness as you think, right? I
Mm-hmm.
always love the statistic that if you do half of what you normally do, you don't lose any fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
half is really easy. And the mental aspect, like our brain is the best indicator of overtraining
Mm-hmm.
and when our body is prepared for things. And if you're dreading something, most of the time it means you're probably not ready for it there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and now it's easy when or you're self-coached or you're a professional athlete, you kind of get to have more dictated. When you're on a team
Yeah.
and your coaches tell you you're on a high school team or things like that, you have a little less say in some of that stuff, but you should
Mm-hmm.
still communicate that to your coach. There is some literature along the lines of what you're saying too. Just for overall health, I recommend people every 3 months, you need to take 7 to 10 days off of no running because of our bones response to the stimulus. So after 3 months, our like bones response becomes muted, and then we start to get injuries because we don't repair or recover as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes why you feel sluggish during those 7 to 10 days. Even like a 1 day rest in the
Yeah.
middle of if you haven't taken a rest day, you feel like crap when you take a rest day here. You're like, why?
Yeah.
It's all about the recovery. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's the whole thing is how you're recovering. And, I think we've said this before, but overtraining is really under recovered.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what we should really think about. It. It's like my recovery wasn't enough for what I'm doing. And I'm into all this stuff now about, I turned 40 this past summer. So I'm like, all right, I got to think about how I do things and what I do
Mm-hmm.
and all these types of things. And a lot of it talks about not doing anything that you can't recover from in a certain amount of time
Mm.
and knowing that. And a certain number or a certain volume of activity to say there's a little bit more in the strength training world to say like, hey, if you're doing more than like 10 sets of something for your chest, like you might not recover very well. But
Yeah.
for your back, you might be able to do like 15 sets because they're bigger
Mhm.
muscle groups. And same thing with running. If you're doing threshold kind of work and you're doing that, like that might be easier to recover from than doing speed stuff.
Yeah.
And like you have to consider what's the implication on how quickly I can recover for it. And then the larger recovery periods make a huge difference too, a little bit in the down season. So
Yeah. No, that's all great advice. And that's sort of how I look at things as well. Like, I just think, especially for us, like pro careers, like I'm basically, once November hits, I'm on until September. Like, it's like there's never not a racing opportunity. And so it's even more important for me to take like a really solid break
yes,
after. I mean, I know famously like Nick Willis, who won multiple gold, multiple medals at world championships and Olympics, like he would take 6 weeks off
that's all.
after.
Yeah,
He was like, I have to be ready in August next year for worlds.
yeah,
I've all I'm preparing is for that. Why would I not take the time I need after? And it's like, I'm not saying you have to go that extreme, like, or,
yeah,
anything, but for, me, like at this point in my running career, like the 2 weeks off has been really nice. And I just know, I'm realistic. Like, I mean, we did a first little baby workout 2 days ago back. We did, a classic 10 by minute on, minute off fartlek. And
yeah,
I mean, I was running 5 minute pace and it was like, this is way harder. I mean, I feel like a rookie again. And that's great. It's momentum's awesome for running. So it's nice to sort of have a big 3 month kind of block of just building fitness. And, that's why marathoners do 12-week marathon blocks. It's like, it's the perfect timing to get, really, really fit, but you don't have too much time to burn out and,
yeah.
kind of like, sort of like be falling apart by the end. And that's why, Reed, who's the best marathoner on our team, like always sort of like, he always does 12-week marathon blocks and that's how he coaches people. So it seems to work.
Yeah. So speaking of like coaching and things like that, yeah, what's new with Hacks? What's going
Mhm,
on with Hammer and Axe training? And
mhm,
you're probably preparing even some off-season plans or some, end of cross country season, getting ready for the like spring marathons. Training will start before we realize it here. So, what have you guys been doing recently over with Hammer and Axe stuff?
Yeah, so we just had our kind of Hammer and X Summit over the weekend. So we just had sort of like huge media day. Some of the best stuff we do at Hammer and X is our content. We have a really big newsletter. We do a lot of social media content. We've done YouTube series with Reed about Boston Marathon and sort of like running focused content, partner with brands, just different things like that. So yesterday we just did 2 days ago we did a huge media day where we sort of let the coaches um, go niche and really dive into their sort of like passions and specificity at what they're interested in and talk about those topics. I think that's something that I've really been kind of obsessed on is people like the running world is like, there's a blue ocean out there of people who aren't runners who want to, become runners. And I just want to, start to really sort of appeal to those people with our content and with what we're putting out there. So we filmed 150 videos just talking about different running topics, like one of the topics we just talked about was getting back into running. I gave some recommendations. Reed talked a lot about marathon fueling. That's like one of the most asked questions he gets. What do I do? How do I do it? And we really let the coaches decide what they want to talk about because I think if you're passionate about something and if you feel like you're, have an area of expertise on that, you're just going to do a better job talking about those things. So that was a big thing. But also we sort of did like a coaching sort of seminar thing. We had we coach a bunch of different people at Hammer and Axe. Like we coach marathoners, we coach high school kids, we do mentorship stuff. We've spoken at camps. Like there's sort of a lot of different things we do through our platform. And so we sort of just had all the best, we gathered all the best information. We did testimonials with, Joey, for example, coached a high school kid that he wanted to run in college. That was his whole goal. And Joey coached him for 2 years and he improved by over 25 seconds in the mile and was able to run at a D3 college, which was his goal. And some of those success stories just to, get people excited. And then finally we were onboarding new coaches. We had some new athletes at Tim and Elite join last year, and I always sort of like give them space to figure out if they want to be here, if they love being a part of the team, and then we'll sort of like open up the door to be, coaches. So we're going to add a few coaches coming in, early November.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're really excited. Like a lot of the coaches just want to be, on the mentorship side of things. There's a lot of high school kids out there who are, maybe living in the Midwest, that their running coach is their gym coach, and he doesn't know a lot about running. He's a great guy, but they would love sort of someone who understands the running space a little bit better. And we offer that sort of, we can offer that sort of expertise for them. And we also have people, like I was saying, Reed coaches some really good marathoners, guys that want to run 2:20 in the marathon, that are working professionals and have a job and live in New York City, but can smash a 20-mile run at 5:40 pace on the weekends, and want to, capitalize on that fitness and be able to run a cool marathon. So we're really excited. The coaches that we're, onboarding, I feel like are filling some gaps in sort of what we're missing. And so we're, going to be putting out some stuff with them. And there's a lot of exciting sort of stuff down the pipeline with some new coaches. But first, they have to take their Run DNA course, because we all loved taking that. One of the cool parts about us is we're able to partner with Run DNA and use your guys' training app, and we really we feel like that sort of elevates everything for us. Just having that organization and having like all of us coaches were like, when we were talking at the summit, we were like, Doug's course is the best, because we, when we're onboarding new people, we want them to have the confidence to coach, and we felt like sometimes you know what workout you're prescribing, but then you're like, why am I prescribing it? And your course sort of helped with the science of why we do certain things and why we don't do certain things. And so that was really, really helpful.
Nice. Yeah, the nerdy part of it is fun
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
can get into that, but it like you're saying earlier too, it can be simplicity. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about necessarily creating complex workouts program. It's like
Yeah.
it's creating purposeful workout
Mm-hmm.
programs and getting consistency and
Yeah.
removing the barriers. And I think it's always refreshing just to see that the best runners in the world that are coaching other people that are
Mm-hmm.
doing that, they have coaches too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone needs a sounding
Mm-hmm.
board for this, and it's hard enough to get out there and
Mm-hmm.
go do workouts
Yeah.
without having to design it at the same time, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really easy to just skip out a little bit on a workout
Mm-hmm.
if you're not accountable to somebody else. So there's a lot of benefits to having a coach. Even the mentorship, I think that's great that you guys are offering that, because I think so many people can learn from mistakes, and you can look back and a new. This has been. I was going to do a separate podcast on this, but maybe we'll just interject this in here with this. But I'm designing some off-season strength training programs, and we're thinking about that, and we're starting to do it kind of age specific,
Mm-hmm.
because there are some different experience levels and considerations based off of that. But I've been using two questions to help me design whether it's a running program or strength program. The first question is, what will I not be able to do as easily in 5 years that I really enjoy doing and want to emphasize?
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of like you said with the Charlie Munger thing, inverse that and say, what are people that are 5 to 10 years older than me not able to do anymore, or what do they wish they didn't
Yeah.
do when they were my age because they're paying for it now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you think about that, it's a little easier to explain the inverse questions there with something
Mm-hmm.
like a gym routine, right? They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's hard to build muscle mass after your mid-40s, so
Yeah.
I need to put some muscle mass on so that I'm not weaker when I'm older."
Yeah.
But guys in their 50s are like, "I really wish I didn't bench press as much because my shoulders were shot." Right?
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so you have to kind of take those 2 elements and put them together and say, "Oh, I would love to be able to run a fast mile or something at this age
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'm not going to be able to do that later." Or those types of things are good things to consider there.
Yeah, no, and that's great. I mean, I like my mom was an elite, she's our coach now for our team, and she was an elite masters runner, and she like always sort of like emphasizes like if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it, as you age and everything. And like she like her running has taken a backseat, obviously coaching our team, and she's like, she's always sort of like, I wish I just, you know, didn't stop doing 200-meter repeats and things like that. And obviously the times get slower as you age, and you kind of expect that.
Yeah.
And maybe you can delay that process though by 5 to 10 years if you're consistent with it. And that's like, I always tell like my wife, like as soon as I'm done, like when I'm retired from professional running, I'm gonna keep running every
Yeah.
single day, every morning, at least 3 or 4 times a week, and like not lose that, and like just make sure that that's like, sort of like my bare minimum threshold of what I do every week. It's like if I want to do more, I can do more, but really, it's like if I'm not getting out for 5 or 6 miles 3 or 4 times a week, like it's hard to get that back, and it's hard to sort of like chase back that fitness and chase back the routine and everything. It's like if you could just implement that, and I think this is like a James Clear thing, but like you have to have your systems be just
Mhm.
bulletproof. And then, if you have that system there, then you can elevate and you can build up from that system, but you can't, like, if it's all torn down, then, you're starting from square one, and that's hard. That's what makes running hard. When people say running sucks, it's because they haven't run in 5 years, that's why
Yes.
running sucks.
But if you can be consistent, I mean, yeah, Drew, I got to thank you because you were coaching me for a little bit earlier this year, kind of
Yeah.
things in the spring, and you just gave me some advice that I really needed to hear of
Hmm.
just like, Doug, you got to increase your consistency a little bit. Like
Yeah.
you got to your frequency and consistency, nothing flashy. You don't have to do anything hard. You
Hmm.
just need to say, all right, get to running 5 days a week and just be
Hmm.
consistent with that for a long
Yeah.
time. And it was, I'm a physiology nerd. So I look at that and it was just amazing how like my red blood cell count and things like how it just
Yeah.
everything climbed up when I was consistent and I
Yeah.
wasn't doing anything flashy. You gave me some solid workouts to do and just nice consistency. And it was amazing to see how the results just
Hmm.
came. And it didn't come in a week or two
Yeah.
weeks or even in a month. But when I did it for 5 or 6 months
Hmm.
straight, it was like, oh, I've been hitting 35 plus miles weeks for 5 months now. And all of a sudden, everything feels a lot easier.
Yeah.
It takes
Totally.
time if you're willing to invest the time in it.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of it, just is kind of
Mhm.
like figuring out how to stay consistent and small efforts. It makes it a lot easier. It's nothing flashy.
And what's crazy is that's advice I'd give for a beginning runner, and like someone like Grant Fisher, who just got
Right.
2 bronze medals. Grant
Yeah.
doesn't miss a day. That's it. His training is hard and structured, but he's built up to that because he doesn't miss
Yeah.
days.
Mhm.
Like there's a famous Josh Kerr quote, and Josh just said, like, and people, they always want sort of like, what's the secret? What's the ticket? And Josh is like, I just don't miss days of training. That's
Yeah.
it. I just stack days for months, years,
Months at a time.
decades,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm good at running. And it's like it's not a flashy or sexy answer, but it's like, oh shit, like that's what we're all supposed to do. Sorry,
Yeah.
shouldn't cuss.
Yeah. No worries. It's not a
I forget I'm just talking to Doug.
yeah. It's just Drew and I chatting here.
Yeah,
This is what we actually normally chat like when
yeah, for
we're
sure.
together
Yeah,
here. This isn't like scripted at all. We normally just have
no,
these good, long, fun conversations. So,
yeah,
yeah, well, that's fun, Drew. I'm just so happy to see you having success and finding that. And, not to get too philosophical, but the things you're learning in running are the things that matter in life. And
hmm
they're the same kind of lessons. And no matter what sport or no matter what activity you're doing, it's that consistency, it's believing in yourself, the mental barriers, the focus,
hmm
prioritization. When you can get those elements together, you can accomplish anything. And it's great to see that you are reaching the pinnacle of the sport and really doing things. And I'm excited to see what this next year looks
yeah,
like as well. For you've run like 2 10Ks in your life.
yeah,
And you're running just ridiculously fast times and at the height of competitiveness there. So I'm excited to see no pressure, but just you keep on the consistency and see where you can take it because it's a lot of fun to watch.
yeah. Thank you, Doug. And I have to mention, I was supposed to see Doug a few weeks ago in Colorado, but I literally texted him, "Hey, Sandy's going into labor. Sorry, we can't get dinner,"
Yeah,
which I thought was really funny.
that
But
was fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
was like,
almost.
Yeah.
I was gonna text back and be like, "Well, what's the room? I'll bring you guys some food."
Like, we would have honestly loved that. So,
I thought
yeah.
about that. I had a
Yeah.
little bit of a cold at the time, so I didn't
Yeah.
wanna come in there
Yeah,
when
yeah.
that was happening, but, yeah, that was fun. I, because then you sent me a picture, like,
Yes, yeah,
an
yeah.
hour or 2 later of
Yeah,
Rosie, and I was like, "Oh, wow," like, they're
yeah,
not just, like, heading in, they're like
yeah.
I was, honored that you even responded to a text.
I didn't want you to think I was gaslighting you or I was, exaggerating about this. I was like, "No, here's the proof."
There
Yeah.
was very honest proof there, so that was
Yeah,
great. Well,
yeah.
we'll have to get together again,
Mhm.
if you guys ever make it out East Coast too, always fun to
100%.
get
Yeah.
together. Yeah, keep it up. Thank you for sharing, Drew, and just being such an open book about this. I think it's so important for people to hear what that looks like and how that can really get results at any level of sport or life. So, yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, Drew. Well, we'll keep you on and look out for the Hammer and Axe plans too. I know you guys are putting a lot of that stuff out.
Yep.
Make sure you're checking out for those too, because I think that you guys really do. I mean, I get to kind of look at your plans and things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that in the background. I'm like, oh, that's a great
yeah,
plan type
yeah.
thing. So lots of great things from there. So check that out too. All right.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Drew, and thanks everybody for listening.
Like what you hear? Leave a review of the show wherever you listen, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Run DNA helps runners and running specialists through education and technology to identify each runner's unique injury profile to avoid setbacks and maximize results. The Run DNA podcast is produced by Ace Running LLC. The Run DNA podcast is intended for educational purposes only. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can occur. Always seek the guidance of qualified medical professionals before making healthcare decisions. Find us online at rundna.com.